With China's economic boom, the number of international professionals choosing to work or study in China has skyrocketed. Male and female individuals from nearly every country can be found in the major cities of China, seeking professional opportunities and challenges, and looking for adventure. Since the first visit by George Macartney's mission in 1793, millions of British people have paid visits to China over the past 2 centuries. They brought their Chinese stories back to the British society, creating a vast variety of Chinese images. They came to China for different reasons and were given different impressions of China. What kind of story will happen when 2 civilizations meet each other? How is the life of British people in China? How I Met You, China.
My full name is Vermilion Lester Talliver von Kanger. I'm from Manchester, England. I came to China in 2013, but I only came to Beijing in 2016. My first year in China, I lived in a village in South China. I was 21. I just finished university, and it was only supposed to be for a gap year. Heather and I, we wanted to be qualified teachers, but we wanted to get some teaching experience first. We signed up for a university program, which worked with a company in Hunan that would take aspiring teachers in England and send them to teach English in China for 1 year. And we were told we would be placed in a bigger city, such as Yongzhou or Changsha. And we ended up being switched to a rural village. It's very south of the province Hunan. It was very rural, population of about 80,000. I lived with my friend Heather and our mutual friend Lee. We were to teach oral English to high school students, and we lived in a house with no power, no running water, no Wi-Fi. And the school itself wasn't bad, the students weren't bad. For rural students, they had a very high level of English. The students were about 15, 16 years old. Their school life was 7 a.m., they are in class. They only leave at 11 p.m. The lights would stay on until 11 p.m. and they had self-study until 11 p.m. It was very high pressure, memorize, learn, memorize, learn, memorize, learn. Because for them, education to them was a way out of that village. For us, we tried to make our classes a bit fun, a bit of a break from the high intensity. So we had a lot of games, a lot of just shouting out. It didn't really feel like work. It was more like just playing around because I wasn't that much older than them. The furthest we traveled to was to Changsha, which for us was a big city. The way that the village was one main road and then another main road. It linked like that. And the school was here. And then it had a line of shops. And then from there, it was just small little houses. We had to take a van to the nearest city, and from the nearest city, take a coach, because we couldn't take the train. There was no trains. We arrived in Changsha, and it was just the best feeling ever because they had a supermarket. they had a Starbucks and they had other foreigners. And I remember my friend Heather and we sat in Starbucks and we just stared at all the people because it was just such a difference. It was like going from 1910 to the present day. And it had the same feeling when I moved from Changsha to Beijing. We've often said that we should go back to that village to see how much it's changed because China changes very fast, and we have a little joke among my friends like, was that skyscraper there yesterday? But now those students would be about 19, so they would all be in different colleges somewhere. A lot of them said they wanted to go to Beijing or Shanghai. Whether that happened or not, I have no way to contact them. I had some of their phone numbers, but even then, our phones were different. We didn't have iPhones. We had a big brick. We didn't have WeChat. Everybody just had to send a message. So I have no idea if the numbers still work. Actually, I found it really interesting. It challenged us, and we learned a lot, and I have a lot of really good memories from that time. I also have a lot of really bad memories, but I choose to focus more on the good. And after that, my friends, they went back to England, and I went to Changsha in Hunan, where I worked at a university for 2 years. And after 2 years, I made the move to Beijing. So I've moved from rural China to Tier 2 city, to Tier 1 city. And it's quite funny for me because I have a lot of friends in Beijing who they've only ever lived in Beijing. So they've not had the Chinese experience that I have had. And when I tell them my stories from when I lived in the village, they're also like, that must have been so hard. But for me, it wasn't hard because I had my friends. I was planning on leaving China to do my master degree. I had a scholarship with the University of Lancaster, and I went out with some friends. I wasn't feeling very happy. So like, come out with us, you know, we'll make you feel better. And I met this man who was really nice, and he had a nice smile, and I remember thinking he's got such a nice, open smile. We met in a bar, and I didn't get his phone number or his WeChat, but my friends went back later, and by chance they bumped into him, and they got his phone number, and they gave it to me, and they gave him my WeChat, and I just decided, why not? I mean, I could make a friend, a language friend, and it just blossomed into something more. And I put off my master degree to come to Beijing, and I then canceled my master degree.
I remember before we met in the bar, I said I like Michael Jackson. Also, she gave this name for me.
Michael.
Yeah, so easy for me memory. Because before her Chinese names like Wu Heise, I just changed the name, not changed the.
I like the character Wu because I always like to wear black. But I can't have the name Black. Only thing he could say was welcome to China. And we used to communicate in Chinese, and as his Chinese, his English got better, my Chinese got worse. Because we started moving from Chinese to English. And even now, in 2 years, when we look back, it's like you are arguing with me in English. You are joking with me in English. You are traveling Europe and speaking only English. And there was a time when you had a vocabulary of 5 words. At the very beginning, when we first became a couple, yes. Because it was his birthday and I wanted to surprise him, and there's this kind of Chinese thing, I don't really know that much about it, where I offer a gift and he goes, no. And I offer again, no. It's like I have to offer it 3 times or something like that. I was like, Michael, I got you a gift. Do you want it? No. Oh. Okay.
And sometimes she wanted me to help her friends. I was trying to help, but sometimes the meaning I don't understand.
Yeah.
So it's make it difficult, the questions. You know, like last time to want me help your friends, Nita, to buy the insurance for the visa. Sometimes I forgot the words because she's tired for me to learn English. Sometimes forgot. That time's easy for fight.
And computer games.
Yeah.
Remember?
Mm-hmm.
We went out to a convenience store to buy some drinks with my friend, and he sat down and started playing computer games, and my friend and I said, let's walk out. And we walked out, and he didn't know, because you were playing computer games.
Sorry. Because I met her friends, sometimes they're talking too fast. So some words I don't understand. I hear it just like that.
Me or computer games? Me or computer games?
No.
No.
Yes. We went to the Yiheyuan.
We tried.
We tried, but we forgot the passport and the ID card, and
We couldn't buy a ticket without them.
yeah, so we go back.
And we were driving a motorbike, and the motorbike broke.
Yes, that's how.
So we couldn't get home.
Yeah, I remember I walked like half hour with the motorbike, and to find the motorbike place to make the motorbike fine, then driving home.
It's like a different person, but not in a bad way, in a better way. Learning another language, especially when you get older, is not easy. So I have a lot of admiration for him, changing his whole life, going from living in Changsha, where all his family is, to following me to Beijing and accepting that one day he's not going to live in China, he's going to emigrate to wherever it is that we go. Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't be able to deal with that, but he's pretty open about it. I mean, we've traveled Europe together. Every time I think it's going to be a big challenge for him, he just goes with it. He's just got such an easy personality. His whole world view has changed. And mine has too, because I wasn't really interested in anybody when I met him. It's just, it works, it clicks. His family surprised me. They were so open to it. He told me, like, I talked to my family, I said I met a foreign girl, they'd like to have dinner with you. And I went for the dinner, and after that, we all just bonded. And now I think his dad likes me more than him. Home in China applies to everybody. Uncles, aunts, cousins, great uncles, grandparents, great grandparents, everybody. Whereas home in England is children and parents. The extended family are not considered a part of that home. So Christmas, you might get gifts from people, but you don't spend the whole day with all of the family together. It's usually just the immediate family. So it can be quite overwhelming at first, and it was for me, but it's a nice feeling, and I feel like it's something which we could do in England. And it's actually not as uncommon as you might think, because on WeChat I am on a lot of groups for foreign girls who are married to Chinese, and we're all talking about cultural differences. Hey, my husband says this, is this true? Or we're having meetups. Just last night I had a meetup with a load of women who are married to Chinese, and we did a charity auction. China and England life, you can't compare. For me, like China, the most powerful thing I have is my phone. Everything is on my phone. And I was talking to some of the girls last night who are married to Chinese husbands, and they said they lost their bank cards and they didn't even notice because they just use WeChat Pay. I find life in Beijing especially fast, whereas in England it's like nothing's changed. But one of the bad sides of living in Beijing is people come and go. All my friends, and we're incredibly close, we're like family. But I know that in 2 or 3 years, they're not going to be here. Yeah, we had this, but when I was trying to get a tip.
Okay.
Oh,
in your hand.
that was fast.
That's good.
When I was taking a taxi, to this shopping mall with Tina, we had to order a Didi 4 times. The first time, He called and said he was here. We said, you're not here. Where are you? He said he was at the south gate. So we walked to the south gate. We said, you're not at the south gate. Where are you? And he's like, I don't know where I am. The second time it started to rain. We waited ages and ages and ages and he didn't come. The third one didn't come. The fourth one came in 2 minutes. Yeah, I've had some DD taxis that are really, really smelly, but this one's okay. It's better than the bus.
It looks not handsome. It's a little like a little.
Oh, you are handsome. You are. Everybody that meets you says you're handsome. Why do you never believe them?
Believe it from myself.
You're fine.
Now look at my body. It looks like that. That.
How do you? You are the size of a 14-year-old boy in England. Oh, the lifter.
Shut up. Don't look at me. We have no conversation.
Yes, conversation.
We don't have any conversation.
Yes,
Because you
conversation.
stay, you make the conversation.
Love you. Thank you.
Due to you really turn the trash.
Put you in the trash.
So you look, you really turn on the. You say putting your husband in the trash. Go up or down?
Up. I have a South African woman. She's married to a Norwegian man. He's Chinese, but he was born in Norway. They have a baby together. They're gonna go to Norway next year. I have a friend, she's from America. She's with an Englishman. They're gonna go to England next year. It's very come and go, and I need that permanent feeling of people who are always gonna be there for me. Everybody that I know, they are in a relationship or married to somebody from a different country. Like, there's a South African woman who's married to the Norwegian-born Chinese man, the American girl with the English man, the Spanish girl with the French man. There's so many of them. It's pretty normal for us. I think for them it's easier because they're all from countries that has a high level of English, so they don't have the language barrier. But one of the big problems that we all have is where will we go next? Where can we live next because of visas? Yeah, my visa has to be renewed every year, and the regulations change a lot, so I have to get something new, or they started it but the regulation changed, so now they have to do it again. And I don't like this feeling of uncertainty with my visa. I don't like knowing, okay, I don't know if I can do this because I need to renew my visa. I don't know if I'll have my passport back by then. Can I get the correct visa? What happens if I can't get my visa? What happens if suddenly this changes? I don't like that kind of feeling. It's a very convenient place to live. It's very international. Most of my friends have a different passport from me. Like, I've got South African friends, I've got friends from Ghana, I've got friends from America, Canada, Europe, Russia, who I wouldn't have met if I didn't live in Beijing. I can go to the supermarkets and I can get shampoo from New Zealand, I can get butter from Ireland, yogurt from Switzerland. It's very, very convenient, but I feel like long term it's not viable because of pollution, and Beijing can be expensive. Beijing is big. There's so many cars all the time, and that is a big reason for the pollution. But also you've got the sandstorms because it's close to the Gobi Desert. Also the location of it, there's not a lot of wind. Cities like Shanghai or Xiamen, they're close to the coast, so they get the wind. And when we get the wind, it blows all the pollution away. Also, the air, I feel like it is getting better. It's not as bad as it has been, but you still get days where it's just like every day is 100. And you start to feel it. And I've talked to other people about when the air is really bad, how do you feel? And I say, I get this kind of headache that's all across here. And they say, yeah, I get the same headache too. It's like you feel really thirsty all the time, don't you? Yeah, I do. And your nose and your throat are itchy. Yeah, it's like we all get that kind of feeling. And when the pollution is bad, I know because that's how I feel. I feel like there's a lot of factors for the reason why Beijing has bad air as well. Like it's close to Hebei, which has a lot of factories. But from Manchester in England, England is a small country and the UK is an island and it's very windy and we get a lot of rain. And also we have a lot of buses and trams and trains. So a lot of people, they don't need to drive and we ride a bike. And, you know, some cities like Manchester and other cities, in the city center, there's no cars because it's just for people to walk, which also helps. I don't really see that happening in Beijing because it's so big. And even us, sometimes we think, okay, we have to go all the way to Sanlitun. I don't want to take the subway. We'll take a car. Everybody feels that way. I don't want to take the subway. There's a lot of people, so I'll take the car. That's what's causing the problem. The big difference between China and England, when people just want to drink water in China, they tend to drink hot water. There are some benefits of hot water, but people outside of China prefer to drink cold water, especially during the summer. So it can be a bit strange for somebody who's not from China to understand that. I think the Chinese tea culture is pretty interesting. There's lots of different kinds of tea and some of them are really expensive. But the tea culture in England, we don't really have a tea culture. It's more like just put the tea bag in a cup and put hot water in. So it's really different. A lot of people still prefer the red or black tea, but green tea is becoming more popular because the benefits of it are becoming more well known. It's got a lot of antioxidants in, it's very good for your skin. And a lot of tea is now starting to be sold all over England, but it's a bit more expensive than regular tea, so it's going to take some more time to become popular. Tea is still something that people in England tend to drink normally. If you're thirsty, you just go and get a cup of tea, but we don't take it outside. And I see a lot of Chinese people with water bottles that's full of tea for them to drink. And it's something that I've started doing myself because I don't like the taste of water. So I started drinking tea in a flask just like everybody else.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that's how it went. Unbelievable. This is my happy face. Shut up.
I'm a very social person. I like to go out, but then I get my limits like, okay, that's enough, I'm going. There's people everywhere and it's just so many people. Like we go shopping to Carrefour to get our groceries and the line for the checkout is down the aisle. It's like, that's crazy. I took the subway during the rush hour in Beijing and they had to push everybody in and I could not get off and I missed my stop because there's that many people everywhere. And even when it's not rush hour, there's still so many people everywhere. And now I'm getting used to it. And for me, it's just, okay, it's just the way it is, just deal with it. But then when other people come to Beijing to visit and they're like, there's so many people, all of a sudden, there is, but there's nothing we can do about it because Beijing has a lot of jobs, it has a lot of money. People will go where the jobs and the money are. And that's one of the reasons why the population is so big. And the government are saying, okay, we need to stop the population of Beijing and Shanghai getting so huge. But the incorrect way to do it is kicking out the migrants who come to Beijing to work, which is what is happening. Which I understand, like, they've got to stop all the people going to Beijing all the time, because then it will just get bigger and bigger. But you can't target one kind of person and tell them to leave Beijing. Spread out the work a little bit more. It's the same in England. London is huge because London has all the big jobs. London has all the media, all the big companies, the banks, so everybody's going to London. What happens is the housing costs go up, people are crowded, and you cannot get a very good job outside of London. So you go to London, it's a circle. And the same thing can kind of happen here, where all the best jobs are in Beijing or Shanghai. So everybody goes there. And it creates something called a brain drain, where the rest of the country, especially in England, has a lack of talented people because they're all going to where the work is. And it's the same thing in China. So we've been in Beijing over Spring Festival. It was so quiet.
It's really quiet.
There was nobody on the subway, there was nobody in the supermarket, there was nobody on the roads. It was so quiet, it was scary, because I'm so used to Beijing just being busy all the time. And then when we got to the train station was crowded because everybody was going home. And it's an impressive thing to see, this huge migration of people going to their hometowns, which is famous worldwide because it's the biggest migration of humans ever. And for China to be able to deal with that and make sure there is enough transportation, that's incredibly impressive, because trains in China, I've never had a late train in China, yet in England, I always have a late train in China, in England, because it's just our rail infrastructure needs to be updated. And yet here they update and they add more rail lines and they get more trains. And when I describe this to people in England, they can't believe it. I say, yep, the train is leaving at 7 minutes past 3 and it leaves at 7 minutes past 3, not 7 minutes and 1 second, 7 minutes past 3. And they're like, that's incredible, because we get a train at 10 a.m. and the train arrives at 11 a.m. I say, yeah, that's just one of the ways that China is developing ahead of other countries. But then again, they have to, because the population is so big, it needs it. In China, I'm taking a train for 6 or 7 hours. I feel safe because all the bags have been searched. You have your ticket, you have to show your ID. And then before you get on the train, you have to show your ticket again. I feel very safe, but in some ways, it's a bit of an inconvenience, because if I have nothing to do one day, in England, I can just say to my friend, let's take a train to another city. And we can do that because we don't have to go through all the security checks. So in some ways, yes, it is a little bit annoying, but in other ways, I prefer it. A long time ago, in 2012, in England, there was a terrorist attack on a bus in London, and I was on the bus. And I was with my friend, and after we got off the bus, all the media were everywhere, and they wanted to talk to the people that were on the bus. And at the time, I didn't really want to talk to anybody. I just wanted to be alone. And my friend got us onto a TV show called ITV Good Morning. And I didn't really want to go on because it's not something that I was comfortable talking about. And she had already signed us up for it, so they were expecting us to go on, so they put us in a hotel overnight. And we had to go on at 7:30 in the morning. And at the time, I was very uncomfortable talking about it, but we sat down and we just talked about what happened on the bus. How did it feel? How did the police react? How do we think it could have been avoided? And various other things. And it was live, so I didn't really know where I could look, what's the correct thing to say, how should I put my hands, what could I do with my legs? But it was over very quickly. But I remember that at the time it was not something that I really enjoyed doing. I remember one time when I was traveling in China with my friend Heather, and we had to get the slow train from Juzhou. And she got on the train before me. She had my passport and I missed the train. So I was stuck in Juzhou with no passport and my phone died and I had no money. So I was in a very difficult situation. And I sat on the train station floor and I cried because there was nothing else for me to do. And eventually these people saw that there's this girl that's just sitting there crying, there's something wrong. And a man came up to me who could speak fluent English, and he sat down and he asked me, what's wrong? And I told him, my friend has got on the train, she has my passport, the train has gone, I missed the train, my phone is dead, I have no money, I can't speak Chinese, I don't know what to do. And he gave me some money and he let me use his phone, and then he took me to go and buy me another ticket without me giving him anything in return. And I think it's very nice of him to do that. So I've always felt very safe here. People are always there to help you. Now I teach third graders, so they're around 8 or 9 years old. And these kids, they're from quite wealthy families, and most of the parents speak fluent English. What's impressive is these kids, their English is, it can pass for fluent. They have perfect American accents. They travel a lot. It's not like teaching Chinese children. It's not ESL, it's teaching them in English. I'm teaching them science in English. I'm teaching them social studies, American social studies in English, and they are able to understand because this is normal for them. They've always learned in English. But I think there's a lot of differences between the high-tier cities and the villages, because China's such a big country and there's a lot of provinces and a lot of people are getting lifted out of poverty, but there's a lot more work to do, especially for these rural villages that are not very well connected to the more urban cities. Speaking from personal experience, there's a lot of people in China that get rich very fast and they're not able to cope with it. The high school students at our school are completely different from the third graders, because the high school students, they have family issues where they've not really had a stable upbringing because their parents got rich fast. Children in China are very expensive. You have to pay for the best schools. Every parent wants their child to go to the international schools. You have classes on the weekend. You have extra classes at nighttime, sports practice. I have a child who, he goes to classes all day, Saturday and Sunday. At the weekend, he has 2 hours of swimming practice, Saturday and Sunday. 2 hours of soccer practice, Monday to Friday. He has extra Chinese classes because the parents are investing so much money in him, because when he's older, they want him to be a CEO or a doctor or an engineer, which is what every family in China pretty much want. They want the best for their children. And I can understand that as well, because when we think of having children, I want the best for our children too. Our children will be just like the children in China, because I know the person I am. They will have classes on the weekend. They will have sports practice and musical practice, because I want the best for my children just like anybody. Because China doesn't do dual nationality. They're Chinese or they're foreign. And our children will have to be English, because in the future we want the whole family to be in England. So it would be easier if they were born in England, because if we have them in China, then we have to renounce Chinese citizenship, we have to go to the PSB, we have to do this and that. And I've talked to a lot of girls married to Chinese men who've done it, and it is a long process. I don't see it as being like a total change in direction, because I can still go back to my master's degree. I've just taken a bit of a delay. And sometimes when I compare my life to my friends in Beijing, I'm the youngest. I'm 26, all my friends are 30, 31, 32. And I look at where they are in life and they're getting promotions and they're becoming managers. I'm like, why am I not there? I'm like, I'm 26 and I've already experienced more than most people would experience. So I don't have to worry about where my life is right now, because it's already pretty far ahead from most people in England. And I'll get my master's degree within the next 2 or 3 years, and then I'll look at getting my PhD, and whether I live in England or I live in China or I live in another country. I don't know, because life is funny, you know. I don't really deal well with settling down permanently because I get bored easily. I have to move around.
In the next episode, we will have a conversation with a Scottish man who comes to China to find a girl he met in Scotland and stays in Beijing for 5 years till now.
My name is Aaron Robb. I'm from Scotland.